From the heart of Manhattan, this is Classic Talk.
Hi, this is Classic Talk with Bing and Dennis. We have a very special treat in store for you today. We are here chatting with Simon Keenlyside, a very good friend of ours and a simply awesome baritone, Simon Keenlyside. Welcome, Simon.
So, you've been busy all over the world. I understand you just, arrived here for a concert.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I remember being here for a Tucker Gala, and people were flying in on the day to sing for Mr. Tucker, and then go, I can't do that. I'm not made that way, so I come, about a week early if I can.
That's great.
And then you can get over the. It's not jet lag. I don't sleep anyway, but it's air conditioning, to be honest.
Changing, places. And things like
you guys live in air conditioning, and if you're not used to it, it really affects you hard.
We have singers constantly complaining when they come from Europe saying, turn that air conditioning off.
If you come a bit earlier, you don't have to worry so much because your body calms down in a few days.
So actually, where you grow up and where you're from?
I'm a gypsy, and that's the truth of the matter. I have been on the road since 1968. I was in a boy choir traveling, a really famous one. So I was singing in the same, Australia, Japan, and America and Canada, and no holidays and recording contracts with Decca and, all that. So I don't really know anything else. That's the way I've always lived.
But you grew up, unlike most children who hear nursery rhymes when they're very small, you grew up to the sounds of Mozart and Haydn and Schubert.
I did.
That was pretty great, wasn't it?
I can't tell you how wonderful that is, Dennis. And my dad's just conked out, so bless his heart. And it's concentrated my mind a little bit more. I did listen every day. They always rehearsed at my dad's tiny little house. Every day, late Haydn's, late Beethoven's.
Your father was a member of a string quartet.
Aeolian string quartet. And they were fabulous, and always journalists there and interviews. I remember him coming back from a session with the Beatles, because my brother, we'd been left on our own, and my brother had drunk whiskey. I don't think I should be saying that really. Anyway, he came back with the Beatles autographs because he'd had to leave the session.
How old were you?
Me, I'm 6 or 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but younger than that, they were playing quartets next door every single day at night.
Then you sang as a boy soprano, I suppose,
I did.
In the church choirs?
Well, it's St. John's Choir, Cambridge, so it's really, we had language classes, we had coachings in how to address kings and princes and popes and things like that, how to behave, how not to blink in front of a camera, how not to be distracted. People would walk behind you and drop a great big book, and if you blinked, you got into trouble, It was an odd childhood.
You learned discipline.
Well, it was just that we were little musicians, little hard-nosed musicians. Do
you still miss the time you were singing?
As a boy?
Yes.
No way. I would never put my child through that.
Oh, really?
No, a child should be a child as long as it can. There's God knows us long enough for all the hurly-burly of... Well, because the world is a tough place, isn't it? And you need to be protected and looked after as long as possible.
Right.
I'm not complaining because I survived.
So what age did you actually lose your voice?
Oh, yeah. The funny thing about boys, your voice break, you can be a fantastic treble boy soprano, but there's no correlation at all between how your voice was as a boy and as a man. So it's just in the lap of the gods.
Do you remember that? Was it one day when your voice absolutely...
No, mine sank. Mine slipped like glacial flow and broke at about 15 and a half. I was thinking, for God's sake, will it please just break?
What was your, feeling? You said, oh my God, I can't sing anymore.
Yeah, I was in shock because I went to then an ordinary school where there's no music, no rarefied atmosphere, no coachings, no traveling, no recordings, no red lights, no.
So what about your high school?
I was lousy at all that.
Really?
It was a very good school for sport, and sport was very, very important to me.
But you have a chance to continue to work on your music?
Nope.
No, not at all?
Nope.
I think you did something crazy, like go off to Cambridge and study zoology.
I did, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, my father set a special fiddle teacher up for me, but I wasn't interested. And eventually he phoned him up and said, forget it, it's not worth it. But he spoke to me first, because I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be outside.
So what kind of a career were you thinking in these days?
Thinking? I'm a singer, Dennis. I wasn't thinking. In any case, only weird politicians occasionally come out of the woodwork at 14 and are roped into speaking for the conventions. Nobody thinks of what they're going to do at 14, 15, 16, 17, do they? I don't think so. I had
No,
clue.
sometimes they say, I want to be a fireman.
I wanted to be an ornithologist.
Oh.
Yeah, because I worked for the RSPB, the bird protection people, and I was a warden on islands and places around Britain. But it only pandered to the hermit in me, so I knew that would be a dangerous thing to follow. Yeah, I am very unsociable in that sense. So.
So you then start.
I did zoology at uni, but I also started singing again and got the virus again. And I couldn't. Then, if a young singer comes to you and says, I'm thinking about singing, what do you think? I would already be thinking, forget it. If they come to you and say, I'm going to sing, I don't care what you say, and there's like a fire under their rear end and they can't put it out, then I would smile inside and go, okay, well, so let's see what you sound like.
What made you start, like, after 6 years or whatever year, you said, oh, I'm going to sing again.
Yeah.
It must be something start you.
Well, I knew that, without going into too much information, singing for me, I had a bit of a dysfunctional background, and so it was a bit of consolation for a long time. Luckily, it changed to be total joy. But I knew it could be fun. And in some countries, Wales, for example, or Italy, you can sing and that's okay. But in England, a boy that sings is, unless he's good at sport or good with his fists, is going to be beaten a bit.
Wow.
So I knew from my childhood that singing could be really fun. So luckily at 2021 I started again. But it wasn't real singing, it was in the choir again.
Oh, okay.
I finished uni and then went to music college for a further 4 years.
Then
for real
someone
study.
must have heard your voice and said,
No, I thought I'm going to give it a go. By then I thought I don't want to do anything else. And I went to Manchester and luckily the fees were very small. Just that window of opportunity was tiny.
Did you listen to opera recordings?
Never. I never heard a singer in my life.
Really?
Then I went to Manchester and I heard these incredible singers. I was just devouring, and I'd be in the canteen and some of my friends would say, have you heard Talia Boué? So I'd rush upstairs and hear him. Go and hear Stacciari. So I got me a Stacciari. Go and hear George London. I was there all day, all night.
Wow.
Loved it then.
Then you made a debut in 1987?
Yeah,
86,
88.
87? In the role of Lescaut, in Manon Lescaut.
No, that was a college. It doesn't count.
That doesn't count, okay. What was your real debut? though?
Notze.
Notze,
Yeah. No rehearsal.
Where was
nothing.
this?
Hamburg. Closed set. You're pushed into the light by somebody. You've rehearsed a bit, but no rehearsal, no stage, no nothing. You leave the stage and somebody will pick you up, take you around to the next entrance and push you on again.
So you consider
Baptism
that,
by fire.
so you consider that's your breaking point.
Well, it was it was very frightening, But it's always frightening for a beginner.
Right,
No matter how well
right.
prepared you are, you go onto the Met stage and stand out there and look around. It's pretty scary.
But you're thinking back now, you think that was a good time then.
No, I didn't like it. I was in
really?
German culture, which for Americans seem to handle it. It's a ridiculous generalization, but they seem to handle it much better than I did anyway. It's a very different culture, as you well know, even apocryphally.
Right. I spent 6 years working in opera houses in Germany, and I know
It's
what you're
hard.
talking about.
Once you get to speak, you realize that when people are shouting you, they're not necessarily being rude. It's just a different culture. When people don't line up, it's not rude, it's just their culture. When they say, pay attention, before every sentence, it doesn't mean that they're being rude. It's just different. But it's hard for a beginner.
Right.
So how many languages do you speak?
Well, I'm very poor at languages because I've spent about 25 years in Germany and Italy and France.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that my German and my Italian and my French isn't utterly perfect is a bit of a joke, really. I speak, of course I speak. Of course I speak. But when people say, oh, but Simon, don't be modest, you're good at languages, the fact is, if they would only stop and listen to what I'm saying, 25 years, mate, and I don't know what the dative is in German, just get by.
Yes.
No, but I have a love affair particularly with German because of the 19th century poetry and the song repertoire.
Yes, you do
but French too.
Yeah, you do a great deal of recitals with German repertoire.
Yeah, and French.
How is that different than being on an opera stage?
Well, I was just saying to Bing, there's no compromise because you don't have conductor a long way away. You don't have to sing in front of the beat. You don't have costumes, hats to get in the way. You don't have all the logistics. You just have a great poem and a masterpiece of music as well. Maybe both.
Right.
Or maybe like Schubert or Mozart, who'll choose very simple poetry because of the depth and profundity and richness of laminates of their music.
Right.
And that marriage is a better marriage, but actually the poetry itself isn't great. But it's very scary. You've got to, memorize hours and hours of poetry, and you make a mistake, and that's it. You'll stop.
No prompter to help you.
But it is so beautiful that I cannot live without it. So,
Have you ever had a blackout during a recital and said,
Yes.
sorry, folks,
course.
we better take this again?
oh, very much so. Sometimes they're very funny. At the end of one of my favorite Schumann cycles, Kernelieder, he says, I had this dream. He's talking to the girl as it were. He says, I had this dream. Oh, no, it's Dichterliebe. I had this dream, and, I've dreamt of that. I can't remember quite what it was, he said.
Hab in Traum geweint?
Yeah, and he says, I dreamt of this cypress branch, and then I woke up and I couldn't remember the dream. When I'd started the song and forgotten, then I'd gone on with it. And then, of course, when I get to the end and say, well, I forgot, in the poetry, the audience just burst out laughing. And this is a tragic cycle. And I've just turned it into a comedy. So that doesn't fill you with a lot of,
No, but
But it happens to everybody, no matter if they're German, French, or whatever they are.
And
I
the
think
audience-
actually that's a part of the performance. I think.
It's a
singing.
part I can live without being.
yes, but the audience loves you for it.
They
in the
do.
end.
I read this biography of the dead famous English actor John Gielgud, and he said, "Well, I always try to build in." It was on tape, so I always try to build in my mistakes, not too many, so that I can get the audience on my side. I don't believe him, but he claims that he would build in the odd mistake.
Could be true.
Well, he was brilliant.
I think audience usually have that kind of a sympathy or empathy.
The only trouble with that, it's a dangerous game to play, because if you built that in early on and then you make another one and another one, that's pretty
No, that's-
annoying to an audience. You're drumming your fingers in the auditorium.
So and now every year, do you sing all the big houses? Let's say
Well, incredibly, I'm doing what I want, yeah.
Yes.
I've come up the long way,
Mhm.
and even before you answer, because I think it's amusing, people, if you want to be avant-garde, as we were talking yesterday, me and Dennis, you want to be avant-garde, do what's on the page in the opera, because most of the conventions, many of the conventions, are not worth the paper that they're not written on. If you do what's on the page, people will think it's avant-garde. If you tell people the truth about your life, then we'll believe you. My repertoire is very big in the opera. But that's because until my late 30s, for reasons up here and for reasons in my body, the bodies change and they grow. They're like trees.
Sure.
And it's true that a young singer should sing their age. But it's frustrating.
Sure.
Because you
Especially
want to
for
do more.
Baritone.
Just
For men,
what
yeah.
do you mean by sing of their age? Meaning, okay, they should not push themselves.
Yeah, if you're a young lyric, then sing young lyric. But of course, that presupposes you're going to get the young lyric roles. And if you don't, what tends to happen is you'll get whatever comes your way.
That's right.
And just hope that this isn't too damaging.
That is.
So many of the things I did because that was all there was. And the stuff I really wanted to do, I couldn't sing anyway. Maybe that's good, though. I would have blown up too soon.
Could be. Then you have-
Ferruccio Fornetto, of course you know very well, he says to all these young basses, this great Italian bass, he says, just sing your Mozart till you're 45, and then you'll have, 20 years, 50, 20 years doing the great stuff, and you'll be ready for it. And this is an Italian talking of his own mother tongue and
Do
his
you
own
think that's a
repertoire.
great advice?
I don't know. Look at Bryn. He came out with it already hitting the ground running,
Sure.
But there are no rules.
No, everybody's
It's a
different.
very individual.
Never listen to anybody else warm up. Everyone's different.
Who guided you vocally? Do you still have a voice teacher, or did you have one person
That's
who?
a thorny question.
A
Thorny question.
Yeah, because of course I am open. I'm open to anything. I do want to keep my radar, as it were, on all the time, and I listen a lot. But I didn't have a teacher since I left college. I do. I swear this. I remember as if it was lasered into my head everything that he said. Little things oh God, if you tell the listener or the viewer, they will lose the will to live. But you know, there's basically in singing, as you well know, there's an open voice and there's the closed voice. The coupa, aperto as well. You take it past the passaggio into the top registers. But in between all that, there's a whole load of different, you know, closed and open, scuro, aperto, dark, light variations, and that takes time to figure out. I've been figuring them out and still address them, but I address it with respect to the tape that is lasered into my head from my teacher from the 80s. I do work at it, and I'm conscientious about it. But no, I don't have a teacher.
You're probably one of those singers that just work really hard at it.
I ain't no natural. I had a pretty little voice that was lyric, and I've worked very, very hard. So that one reason really is to reduce anxiety. If you know how your voice is going to work in a variety of conditions, then you reduce the need to be nervous, really. Or at least one of the major reasons.
That's true. Very fortunately that you do have a tool to work with.
Yeah, well,
it.
you can't speak without a tool, Bing. That's
right.
absolutely a fantastic point.
You see some of the singers, sometimes they just not quite have it. Then they work so hard. That is something.
Well, if there was a God, that's the God's biggest joke, isn't it? You know, to give this fabulous instrument to someone with not much up there, and vice versa. You know, somebody with no instrument, fabulous musicality, and you see it a lot.
That is true.
One of your very best roles, I think, that we all know you by is Péléas from Péléas and Mélisande. Now that is a different kind of a baritone. You know, that's high and it sits high. Did that come naturally, or did you really feel a stretch to get up there?
Well, trust you to ask a wonderful question. But it's very, very important to me. It's one of the, I don't do crossword puzzles. I don't do computers or Sudoku, all those funny things. But singing is a crossword puzzle to me, and I love it. How does any one note, when you're studying, relate to where it came from, where it's going to? And without knowing that, you are going to come a cropper. You have to do all that and the stage work until it's second nature. But one of the puzzles that I particularly like is colour. How to affect people with colour. You can upset them, or, you know, autistic people or children will do that automatically.
Right.
If I sing in front of my little boy, not so much now, if it was something like Giovanni or Macbeth, he would be upset. He'd tell me to stop because he thinks it's aggressive. Because it is.
Right.
And that's to do with the way you approach the note and the colour that you take into the hall. It's not even about dynamic necessarily, how loud or how soft. You have to, and how do you do that? Well, I don't know. It's boring even to discuss it. But yeah, with Péléas, you have to think, what is he? He's a young man, he's an innocent, he's very vulnerable. If you think it, a lot of the colour will come into your voice. What you don't want to do, in my opinion, unless you want to go around the world with your 5 roles and your sound, and that's it, and take that sound to every role, which is fine. Some people, great singers, did that. But I think it's more interesting.
You get bored too.
Well, I would, but many people wouldn't. You'd earn a lot of money, and you'd be called the first one they'd call.
Right.
But I think it's more interesting to try and find a colour that suits the role. That itself will be frustrating, because if you're doing Péléas and you're young and you want to do something else, people will say, you're a baritone Martin, you know, you're typical Péléas, and you want to go, no, I can do other things.
That's right.
But you must only use, in my opinion, the colours required for the role. Billy Budd does not want to sound like Macbeth.
Right.
And it's very difficult because, well, those two are great extremes, of course. The business of how to get those colours technically is too boring to discuss now in front
But
of
it's
the camera.
also wrapped up with the other side of it is acting, because you've always been known as a great.
But that's part of acting, isn't it? It's a colour, and it's a vocal colour.
Acting, yes.
And that old term that Cappuccilli used to, he took a shine to me as a young man, and he used to say prima la voce, and I didn't understand him at that time. It's not sing first, act second. It means act with your voice. First and foremost, act with your voice. When the Brits and the Americans complained about the Great Ring cycle in Munich in the 70s, it's because we didn't speak German. They're standing there and not acting. They're talking to you. There's nothing we could do at this table if I did a cartwheel that would elucidate any more that we're talking about. So you've got to be very careful to differentiate between what is acting and what is mugging and gumming at the camera, you know. juggling, as it were.
Right. Every
So-
time I watch you, I always feel that you have a singing, acting, so well, and not only that, your physique, physical acting, just combine them. It just make the
But
your
I can
roles.
get it very wrong, Bing. And to be honest, it's nice being honest. Sometimes I get it wrong by being too active and fiddling around too much, and I have to concentrate really hard. Keep still.
It's simple.
Keep it simple, because then the tiniest of movements that you do will be much more effective.
Like when you run into the wall in Hamlet, when you bounce off
I
the
like
wall. I loved it.
Yeah, but there was a logic for me in that, because he was dealing with his mother. He's not going to kill his mother.
That's right.
So what is he going to do? He's going to self-harm. It's just utter frustration,
That's right.
which
That's
just
right.
comes spontaneously and
Right.
just bang
And
to
you-
try and break it out of his.
You did it every single time. So,
Yes, well.
Tell me something.
I don't work for a living, Bing. I work out how to run at a wall, so it won't hurt me.
There must be a thrill.
I played rugby as a boy, as
There
a
must
contact
be
sport.
thrill, I
Yeah.
watch you bumping to the wall and just come back and lying there. It's great.
Even there's a serious point, Bing. When no one's looking,
Yeah.
go put a pair of shoes on and a tracksuit, go and quietly work it out. When you come to the rehearsal and do it, and they go, oh, well, then they think, oh, you're just spontaneity. It's not spontaneity. You worked it out. Which shoulder, which everything.
Speaking of working it out, Hamlet. We're talking about Hamlet.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Hamlet from the great play, and not so much from the opera Hamlet. How did you prepare? Did you get yourself deeply involved in the Shakespeare, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, I remember when I was at college, they said you must read the Beaumarchais play before you do Marriage of Figaro. It will elucidate entirely the piece. So I did all that and didn't make a damn bit of blind bit of difference. I think you can only work with the materials in your hand. Okay, I'm being a little bit extreme, because by reading around a subject, you will get some colours and you can bring them in. And Hamlet is such a case, because the opera is not the play. It is not Shakespeare. Not even like Verdi's stuff, who took great tranches, as you well know, and translated them into Italian. But even then, by translating it into Italian, it's no longer Shakespeare. Sorry, but it isn't. Anyway, the point is, Hamlet is not Shakespeare, but we shouldn't get so hung up on it. Because otherwise you just tend to polarize people. Well, I'm not going to see Hamlet because it's not Shakespeare. It's not Shakespeare.
No.
Right.
That's
But
Ambroise Thomas.
nor was Kurosawa's Ran Lear.
Right.
And yet Kurosawa's Ran is a great, great film. So I think those things are very important. We are satellites. Those works of art are satellites orbiting around the sun of the mother piece, And Hamlet has got some good bits in it, but it discusses the same issues, and there are some nice bits of poetry in it. But as regards these scudding clouds of imagery that Shakespeare has, is great shifts of light, within 5 seconds there are 10 thoughts you can't keep up. When you're listening to Shakespeare in your own time, you think, wait, I want to think about that. It's not that.
Have you ever considered doing the play?
No.
You're an opera.
If I had wanted to be a legit actor, I'd have done it. Sure. But as for being an actor, of course I'm a bloody actor. I'm so bored of actors saying, well, opera is opera.
I think you can do it, though.
Do you not consider silent film acting? Do you not consider Buster Keaton or Chaplin as actors?
We're going to have to stop right there. We have to take a break.
Great.
We'll get right back to this, but we are here with Classic Talk with Bing and Dennis. We'll be right back.